we're going to cover how to create 3D views in Revit. We're going to talk about different view styles that come with Revit, and I'm also going to introduce V-Ray, which is a plugin for Revit. This allows higher end rendering and more accurate visualization as far as lighting and materials. V-Ray is a standalone plugin. You purchase it separately, but it's a really effective rendering tool. It's used by a lot of professionals in creating realistic scenes and cartoon animation, things like that. So we'll start off with kind of the default views that Revit has and some of the render styles. These 3D views are great not only for design presentations, but when you're putting together your set of construction documents. A lot of firms will have 3D views in their document sets. Especially on the first page, you usually have one kind of overview 3D view of your project. So this could be an effective kind of first image to put in your construction document set. Okay, so this is a sample project. This is a project that we're building in Armenia. This is the latest house that we've designed, framed, and built, all using the FrameCAD steel system. So we have the 3D model of this. I'm in 3D view, which is the kind of default 3D view that loads with Revit. You'll notice that it's an isometric view. It's, all the lines are vertical. It's not perspective. You can see here that says orthographic. If you were to set this to perspective, it would change the view. So now the view would have vanishing points. Let's see. There's ways so you notice what I just did. If you click on this little wheel, this full navigation wheel, this will give you some tools as far as looking, right? I can look in different directions. I can orbit. I can move the camera up or down. I can rewind. Let's say my view gets messed up and I want to go back to where I just was. You can hit rewind and go back to one of the previous views where you just were. Zoom. Okay, so these are effective, but let's say we want to change the lens length of our camera, right? Let's say we want something that's more dramatic, more of a wide angle. So I have this tab pulled up. I'm going to right click on it and I can go to increase, decrease focal length. So by clicking and dragging, actually perspective. Not sure why that's not working. I'm going to try something else. So I'm in 3D view, and I think this might still be orthographic. So I'm going to go to my floor plan, and I'm going to create a camera here. So this is probably a better way to control the 3D view if you want a perspective. So in this arrow drop down at the top, click on camera, and you're going to choose where you want this camera to be located. So I'm going to click here and drag my mouse and then click again. And I extended that view out past the house. So what it's going to do is it's going to be able to see the entire house. If I were to stop it short of the house, it wouldn't see everything. So make sure when you click and drag, when you're establishing that camera, that you set the view range beyond the object that you want to show. Okay, so this is the 3D view that I just set. Again, I can go here, I can look in different directions, I can edit all of that. You'll notice that it just created a new view under my 3D views. So I can rename this. We'll call this entry 2. And let's say I want to make this more dramatic. If I want to change the focal length of this, right click, increase, decrease focal length, and here we can play with that. So the further back I go, I can then zoom, and you'll notice that this view becomes more wide angle. I can orbit, pan. So you can establish the view that you're interested in. Okay, so that's for a perspective view, right? You're seeing that. We can, again, change this, increase, decrease focal length, and I'm just clicking and dragging to adjust this. By going up, down, I can set the eye level, looking in different directions. Okay, so I have this view that I've set, and let's say I want to lock this view so that I can't accidentally move it. You can go, let's see, down here, it says unlocked 3D view. If you click on that, you can say save orientation and lock view. So once you do that, now I can't toggle and move this around. So the workflow that I like to do is, if I have changes to make on this, I'll go into a just generic 3D view. If I have to look at another side or change a material, I can do that in this view, but then I've now saved this entry 2, and this one won't move. So I can set this as the view that I'm gonna, render, or I'm gonna visualize, and this is my working view. Okay, so create new views, and again, I did that by going to this house. If I want to just create the default isometric view, or if I click on the arrow next to it, I can create a camera if I'm in plan view, and I can make a perspective drawing like this. Okay, so there's solar panels on the roof, solar hot water heating in this house, and this is the entry. You go into this entry vestibule before entering the house. So this is the view that we'll work on. Let's say we want to add shading or add some shadows to this. If you click on this visual style here, we can click on graphic display options. These give us options that we can adjust to visualize this view. So this doesn't just work for 3D views. This is for elevations, for plans. You can edit these settings for many different views. You can edit them and then even save this as a view template, so you don't have to reset all of these for every 3D view in your project. You may change these to exactly what you want and then say save as a view template, and now you can call it, rendered with shadows or something, and save that for all of your 3D views. So by default, this is set to hidden line. We can take a look at the different options. As I change these, I'll hit apply to give you a preview. So hidden line was basically black line on white surface. My viewport here is inverted. It's easier on the eyes. This is shaded view, consistent colors, textures, and realistic is going to do kind of a preliminary rendering of this view. So it'll try to render the materials and simulate lighting. So we've added a paint color to this entry here, so that the punch out is a different color. We have edges turned on, So those could be turned off, right? If we want this to be more about the object itself than the line work. So I would always check this smooth lines with anti-aliasing if you are going to include lines. Adding lines kind of makes the view more diagrammatic, which might be what you want. You can set the transparency here. So if you want to make it more ghosted or less ghosted, you can play with some of these settings. Silhouette, you can tell it a line type that you want to use for the kind of silhouette around the view. So this is going to give us a heavy line. Let's say none. We can turn on shadows, so to give the view more depth. There's two different types of shadows. So there's the shadows based on the sun location. You'll see that when I hit apply. And again, that sun location we can adjust. We can set the time of day, the date, all of that can be adjusted. And then there's also ambient shadows. So this is a setting called ambient occlusion. This creates a fake shadow when two surfaces get close to each other. So if I turn off cast shadows and only show ambient shadows, you'll notice the ambient occlusion, anytime two surfaces like this floor and wall get close to each other, it creates kind of a fake shadow between the two objects. So it's a way of making something look more three-dimensional without necessarily going for realism, which can be a good feature. Okay, and so with cast shadows, there's a lot we can do here as far as sun settings go. We'll get to that in a second, but there's sketchy lines if you want to communicate to someone that this is a work in progress, for example. Lighting. So right now this is set to exterior sun only. There's other schemes that you can set. Right now this is sun setting is set to in-session lighting. So this has an altitude and azimuth, and we can either edit it this way, or we could say, okay, give me a single day. We can set the actual location. Search. Find the actual location and hit OK. This is where this project is located. And we can set the date. If we want maybe longer shadows, we could use kind of a winter day. Change this. This is a single day, so what it's going to do is it's going to give us a range. So it's giving us a range of time for that sun. I'm going to set this to still so that it's just one snapshot of where the sun would be. And we can set this to 1 o'clock on December 12th and hit OK. And so you're seeing the lighting change slightly here. So we can modify this to, it's set to 1 a.m. Let's set that to p.m. So you'll notice that that changes. So you can play with that setting to see how that kind of affects the project. This is also set to realistic. So if this were set to, let's say, hidden line, the way it renders these shadows. be a little different. So you can see how with hidden line, and again, this is a preview in which it's inverted. So this will show up as white surface and black line when it prints. But you can see the shadow that it's forming here. So we can adjust the time, set this to maybe 10 a.m., hit apply, and you'll see that the shadows change. So this might be more favorable for what we're looking at. It's kind of shading the top part of this wall. It's not creating as much of a shadow, so maybe this is what we're looking for. And you can affect the darkness of the shadows. Kind of hard to see in this view, but right, so just got lighter ambient light. We can add more light to the scene. And again, I'm now in hidden line view, so all these settings apply to these different views. Right? If I go to shaded, hit apply, you can get a representation of that. I want shadows to be a little darker. How bright the sun is can also be adjusted here. And then some settings for realistic mode here. And then the background, you can set this to be sky. And again, we will hit apply to take a look at that. So this is a kind of simple sky gradient from gray to blue. We can set this to gradient where we control the colors. So I kind of like this, going from white to blue. Or you can set an image. So if you have a background image you want to use, you can do that. Okay, so once I'm happy with this view, just like any other drawing, I can drop this onto a sheet. So this is our title sheet. I can take our entry 2 view that we just did. I'll duplicate it. So right click, duplicate view, and I can then, I'll rename this. We'll call this entry 2. Sheet. So we're going to drop it onto that sheet. Okay. So we have this view. I don't need this title, so I'm going to select this and go no title. We can set the size here. So I went to size crop. I'm going to set the size to maybe 600. I'm going to keep the proportions locked and say OK. Now it's much larger. We'll bring that down a little bit. Set this to say 400 millimeters. Okay, so this is going to be the title page for our project. Try to center it. So now if I were to print this sheet, so when we print to PDF, we just go to this red icon at the top. I'm going to select the sheet that I want to print and set this to, say, check none, and I'm just going to print this title sheet. And it's going to zoom 100, so it's not going to try to scale anything. Save this to the desktop. We'll call it title sheet. And we can set whether we want this to be vector or raster. I'll set it to raster, although it may override that when it sees the vector line work in this, but we'll see what it does. Colors, we want color. It's going to basically have a high quality image for all the raster work. It's either raster where it's pixel based or vector where it's line work based. I'm going to place it in the center and hit export. Okay, so then if I go to my desktop and find that file, you'll see that it's showing the 3D view that we just created. So shadows are turned on. This is kind of similar to maybe a SketchUp view that you would see. So that's a decent view. Just to illustrate what a hidden line view would look like, we can edit this back here, graphic display options, and we can set this to hidden line. And let's adjust the sun location. So if we go to lighting, in session, we'll set this to still, and we'll set the time of day to maybe 3 p.m. on a summer day. Okay, so that's too dark. We'll set this to noon. A little better, maybe 1. Try 10 a.m. All right, we'll try that. So if I go to this title sheet, you'll see that it's updated here, and now I can print this again. And we'll call this same place. Title sheet 2. And we'll see the hidden line view option of that. So this is more diagrammatic. I think this could be a cleaner way to represent the project if you don't want to spend time adjusting materials and making the shaded view look accurate. This could be a simple kind of diagrammatic view of the project. And again, I can adjust the darkness of shadow, the way the shadows are kind of falling on the object. But those are all settings that we can play with for that cover sheet. All right, so that's one way to create 3D views in Revit. The other way, and there's other rendering software plugins for Revit. Enscape D5 has an export option directly from Revit. But this, with V-Ray, I think it's the most accurate and highest quality as far as rendering plugins for architecture. So I'm going to go back into this 3D view, and I'm going to again create a new view here that is the kind of the view that I'm looking for. Another thing that I haven't covered yet is the section box. So first I'll duplicate this view. We'll call this section box rendered. And a section box will crop the 3D view. So under properties, I'm going to scroll down here to section box and click on that check. So a box appears around your model. You can select this and play with these grips. So I can pull this and update it, cropping the geometry. Okay, and so once we have a view that we like, I'm going to lock this view once again. So I'm going to go here and hit unlock 3D view, save orientation and lock view. So it's going to lock this so that I can't move this around, I can't toggle anymore. And